Hi, everybody. How are you? It's 10:29. Give you a moment to say to some of your friends, maybe, hey, go to that John Michael Marty Facebook page and jump on there and let's see what's going on tonight. There is a lot to talk about, I don't mind telling you. Some most very recent headlines, a couple of jokes, and some real meat of the matter I think that we'll get to in the next 30 minutes. I thank you for joining in. And as you come on, say hi, and I'll certainly do my best to acknowledge you. So, it is Nightcap for July the 13th. It is the second Monday night in July, and it is just, without question, a lovely hot day today, no doubt about it. Couple of headlines for you. Of course, the World Cup is down to 4 teams. It is down to France versus Spain and England versus Argentina. 4 very good teams. And I have not been watching since the U.S. got beat, and I don't think I'm alone. But anyway, it's a good thing. Hi to Don and Ruthie, and hi to Betty. Not Betty Zumwalt. Nice to see you. And thanks for joining in. Jim Marcacci, and I'm sure Jim's lovely wife Denise will be in there as well. So nice to see you all, and hi to every one of you. And like I say, you can, text your friends and say, join in. So we talked about the World Cup for just a moment, and that's all we're going to give it. Other headlines, I don't know if you caught this bit of news or not, but the world is facing a shortage of anchovies. And I only have one word for that, and that is yay. It's a little fishy. I don't know if that's actually true, but that's what I read today. We're facing a shortage of anchovies. So if you like it on your pizza, could be a problem. And if you say anchovies, not on my pizza or anything else, no big deal. The other thing is China has abruptly stopped the export of helium. Now, helium, it's really weird how helium is like in a big hollow cave underground. We have some in the United States. I think it's out in like Wyoming and Oregon and that area. China has a lot, but they're not sending any more out. So in other words, that means with a shortage of helium, the price of balloons is going to balloon. So anyway you look at that, it's going to be tough. All right, enough about that. Now, how about Jordan Walker? I don't know if you happened to watch the Home Run Derby tonight. It was on Netflix, not on Fox. So Netflix got the Home Run Derby, and they got the best one probably ever. 8 guys, including Jordan Walker. And our old ex-favorite Cardinal, Wilson Contreras, was in it as well. So was Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper. But guess who won? Jordan Walker. And I'm telling you, it was exciting because he and Kyle Schwarber were in the final of it. And Kyle Schwarber was way ahead. Jordan only had 4 swings. He was 4 home runs behind. Missed another one, but hit a couple more, got to the last ball, then hit 3, because if you kept hitting them after the last ball, you got to go. And he wound up beating Kyle Schwarber 12-11. It was exciting. And Jordan Walker hits majestic home runs. So does Kyle Schwarber. So it was really fun to watch. Congratulations to Jordan. He got a heck of a beautiful trophy. He got a gorgeous chain around his neck with a facsimile of the Liberty Bell with 250 rubies and a bunch of diamonds on it. And he also got a check for $1 million, which he promptly gave to his dad. Now, I'll tell you what, that's a pretty good guy, wouldn't you say? Here's to Jordan Walker. Now, Smuckers owns Hostess, including Twinkies and Ding Dongs and all that. It used to be owned, I thought, by a company in Mexico, and evidently at some point, without me knowing it, Smuckers bought that company. So Hostess is now owned by Smuckers. and because of Smucker's incredible ability to run a company. I've always griped about Smucker's because they quit making my favorite coffee, which was Fog Lifter a few years ago. It was so good, the commercials were so great, it drew me in, and the coffee smelled wonderful and tasted wonderful, and of course they quit making it. So good for Smucker's. They've lost $3 billion since they bought Hostess. Hostess sales are way down. Maybe Smucker's has to figure something out. Now, speaking of candy and, confections, bakery stuff and all that, I saw an interesting article this week about the Mars company, M&M's, and of course, and Hershey. And I found out that Snickers, which is the most popular candy bar in the world, Snickers was actually named after a horse that was owned, excuse me, that was owned by the Mars family. Snickers. I found out that there are 16 peanuts in every Snickers. Of course, they're smashed to bits, and you'd think there's like 80, but there are 16 whole peanuts when they start in each Snickers bar. Mars did $55 billion last year. Part of that because they produce 15 million Snickers bars every single day. So that's pretty good. Hi, Olga. Nice to see you. It is a real pleasure. Always, because I miss you so much from the radio station from years and years ago. Now, I mentioned Netflix carried the home run derby tonight. Netflix is doing something quite interesting. If you remember, you're old enough and you probably had a Netflix subscription when they would send you DVDs. You could get 2 or you could get 3 or whatever. Hi, John. Nice to see you. And thank you for an incredible weekend over at Twisted Trail Winery. The grand opening was everything you could ask for, I'm sure. Great crowds on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The entertainment was incredible. And the big surprise, that lovely young lady who came from St. Louis brought along with her an absolute legend, former Big Red football player, tight end, Jackie Smith. And Jackie Smith sang, so how about that? I'm sorry I missed that, but it was great to be over there on Sunday. And being back over there on Sunday, I'll get back to the Netflix story in a minute. Being over there on Sunday, it was just lovely. The weather was great. The crowd was terrific. And, of course, John said, go out there and mingle. And I walked out onto the patio after visiting with our good friend Jerry Spinner and his wife, Cheryl. And I walked out on the patio, and what did I see but the Mount Olive contingent? So Jay and Christine, thank you, and your friends, and I'm sorry I've forgotten their names. But for all of you guys at that round table, you were so gracious, and it was certainly fun to talk to you. And everybody else that I talked to, and I talked to a lot. I met the guy who absolutely is what I call him, the vintner, the guy who takes those wonderful grapes there at the vineyard at Twisted Trail and turns them into the most beautiful wine. And so anyway, it was a great weekend, and I can't wait. I'll probably go back this next weekend too, because they're open every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from and we say 2 until 9, and I think that's probably when they're going to do it. 2 until 9 is a good time. You don't have to stay all 7 hours, but you might as well go for a while. And so that is that. What's it all about, Alfie? Yes, Vaughn. Who sang that song? Oh, Dionne Warwick sang that song, didn't she? So Netflix. Okay, let's talk about Netflix for a second. Back in the days when you could get DVDs, Netflix was just getting started, and it just took the world by storm. And a guy named Reed Hastings, who was the founder of Netflix, made billions of dollars. And then when they got into streaming, he made more billions of dollars. And Netflix's stock, of course, it went public, and it really went big. And the nice thing about Netflix was, of course, when it started streaming, they were getting an opportunity to see a lot of movies. You didn't have to rent them anymore. You didn't have to go. It basically killed Blockbuster. There's only one of those left in the whole country, the whole world. But Netflix now, of course, streams all the time. People Netflix and chill. However, a recent slide in engagement, that's what they call it, has the streaming giant reportedly considering doing live channels. Well, you know, you already have Pluto for free. You have Tubi for free. So many other, if you buy a smart TV like LG, you're going to get hundreds of channels. Pardon me, I'm choking a bit. You're going to get hundreds of channels, so there's thousands of things to watch. But they're saying we're going to jump into that game too. So if they start doing that, it basically will turn into the company that basically killed cable is turning back to cable. But that's what happens. For years and years, when you watch TV, over-the-air television, back when it was over-the-air television only, when you'd watch a game show, whether it was a primetime one at night or in the daytime, most of the time, a great many of them, the announcer, whether it was Johnny or whoever it happened to be, the announcer would always say live from, or not live, but from Television City in Hollywood, it's time for the match game with Gene Rayburn or whatever it happened to be. The sad thing is, of course, over the years, production has moved out of Hollywood. Production has gone to Georgia. Production has gone to Idaho and up and around Portland and Seattle. And quite frankly, an awful lot of it, about 30% now, is done in Vancouver. It's not even in this country. So Hollywood is having some problems, and it's probably most apparent at Television City. Television City used to be hundreds of acres, 5 different lots, sound stages all over the place. And Television City was bought a few years ago by a company, a holding company called Hackman Capital. Hackman Capital is losing Television City right now. They're $357 million in debt, and the peak TV boom is over, and it's just gone. And matter of fact, one of the studios, one of the lots that has, lots of sound stages and warehouses and everything, is going to Netflix. And for a fraction of what Hackman Capital paid for it back in 2021. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Now, I'll tell you somebody who does make money, and that's people who own football franchises in the NFL. The Seattle Seahawks are being sold to the Khosla family, and I'm not even familiar with them, including a guy named Vinod Khosla, in accordance with the wishes of late team owner Paul Allen. Paul Allen, as you know, was one of the founding partners of Microsoft. Paul Allen said, we want to sell the Seahawks now, and the Khosla family entered into a formal agreement to purchase the defending Super Bowl champions for $9.612 billion, by $3 billion more than any other football franchise has ever been sold for. The Cardinals are worth about $6 billion, I think. The Yankees probably would go for 9 or 10, but they aren't selling either one. But the Super Bowl champions, the Seahawks, just sold for $9.6 billion. They already own a whole bunch of shares of the San Francisco 49ers. They have to sell them, the Khoslas do. A sad note happened this week, and I don't know if you're aware of that. Hi, Jim. How are you? What a great, beautiful 45-foot long by 8-foot long deck you built for your buddy. And I hope he paid you well, because it is one of the most beautiful decks I've ever seen. If anybody's considering doing a new deck, I would always suggest that you check with my friend Jim Young at All American Construction. You'll find him on Facebook. You'll find him in the book. Out of Mount Olive, he does just absolutely fabulous work. After the snowstorm, the big blizzard knocked down my carport, this area where I'm sitting, Jim came in and knocked it down, hauled it away, and built it 3 times stronger and bigger and better than it ever was. And I can't say enough about it and the quality of his work. So thank you, Jim. Nice to see you here tonight. A sad note this week, a lady named Martha Ann Lillard. This is a name that, again, nobody is going to really know who it is. But Martha Ann Lillard was the last known person surviving in an iron lung. She was 78 years old. And the sad thing, the really, really sad thing, is that Martha Ann, she was... Hi, Kathy. How are you doing? Nice to see you. She got polio at age 5, and she has been in an iron lung since then to her death at 78. She contracted polio when she was 5. She was paralyzed, dependent on the iron lung. Obviously, of course, they were used early in the 20th century. Long before Dr. Salk invented the polio vaccine, the iron lung is what kept polio victims alive. After Jonas Salk invented the vaccine, the cases in the United States basically went down to less than 10 a year. Somebody was saying to me earlier today, I was talking about this, and they said, there are people out there who think that Dr. Salk and people like him were aliens. That's the only way they would have come up with these things, because it was so unbelievably difficult. And I'm more inclined to believe that the human spirit is such that somebody who works and works and works and does not give up is who accomplishes these things. I don't think they were aliens. Maybe a little God inspired for certain, but it takes effort, it takes work. As St. Paul or somebody said, it takes faith and good works, to get there. When was the last time, no, let me rephrase it. When was the first time that you flew? If you're of a certain age, and maybe you might have flown for the first time in the 60s, in the 70s, it was different back then, as you well know. If you think about it, the airports were different. They were not quite as fancy as they are right now, of course. And they had things in the airport that you don't see anymore. I was reading, if you think about what airports were like and what flying was like in the 60s and 70s, one thing that people used to do, they were always inspired and enthralled by watching planes, especially the big planes by the airports. And airports used to have observation decks. Quite frankly, you could drive down Hanley Road in St. Louis, and there were probably 3 or 4 places you could literally pull off and park your car and watch planes come into Lambert and take off. It was not an uncommon occurrence for families to go out and do that on a Sunday afternoon, take a picnic, take a cooler, and sit and watch planes come in and leave. And of course, that was the time when Lambert was a TWA hub, and they were doing hundreds of flights every day. So you never got bored. There was a plane coming and going literally every minute. Observation decks have been gone for a long time. There are a couple that have come back in the last couple of years, but after 9/11, basically they all went away. Something else that you would see at the airport, and again, think how life has changed. It used to be you could sit down at the airport in a chair that had a TV attached to it. And you could feed it dimes and you could watch 10 minutes of TV. You didn't get a chance to watch a movie, but you did get a chance to see whatever the local channels were, and you could do it. But they went away, not only because of just changes in the way things were done at airports, but most of them were basically broken and ruined because kids would snap off the dials and things like that. But a dime for 10 minutes was pretty cheap. It's about what your cable costs you now. So telechairs is what they were called. Smoking areas, of course. Smoking on the plane, smoking in the airport. You don't do that anymore. But the one thing that amazed me the most, what's gone now, that you used to have at the airports, and that was life insurance vending machines. Did you ever remember those? I know I'm talking to people who are over 60 at least. But life insurance vending machines, for about $250, you could purchase about $60,000 worth of life insurance. Of course, it was only good for the time your plane took off until your plane landed. And if you could get it one way, but if it was a round-trip ticket, if you only bought one way, the back end wasn't covered. So you could buy it for the whole thing, too. But $250 for $62,500, when airfares, air flights were not quite as safe as they are now. They were safe, but not like now. It's a little different. Excuse me. I have a cough here. I see Jim Marcacci said, I was 13, flew to California with my brother on a Constellation. Absolutely. That was McDonnell Douglas, I believe. A beautiful prop-powered plane. That is right. A good guy who used to be a Buffalo Bills radio announcer named Don Criqui, and then he also did TV for CBS. Don Criqui was the voice of the TWA commercials on TV, and he only had one line. They'd, do the beautiful video of the planes taking off and showing the flight attendants inside and serving a meal on real china, and then he would always end that commercial with TWA, the most comfortable way to fly. And when we talk about things that we miss at the airport, I always say what I really miss from the airports these days is TWA. I used to fly TWA to California a few times. I flew TWA in the midnight to Vegas. I flew TWA one night on the 4th of July. I think left St. Louis at 10:30, landed in Vegas at 11:10, because of the time change. But the interesting thing was flying across at night in the dark at 10:30 as I made my way west and it became earlier. I was seeing fireworks all the way across. And you haven't lived till you've seen fireworks from 37,000 feet. To look down at them instead of look up at them. Quite a sight. Okay, that's some of the fun stuff. There may be more before we're done. There's so much more. I hope I don't take forever here. Governor Pritzker. Governor Pritzker's doubled your gas tax a couple of years ago. And they're just sitting on the money. I apologize. The law promised major infrastructure improvements, but the state roads aren't in any better shape than when it took effect 7 years ago in 2019. They've collected billions of dollars in taxes for road improvements from this massive 2019 Rebuild Illinois law. But drivers aren't seeing the benefits. Now, Illinois is taking in tax dollars faster than it's spending them on improving infrastructure. Despite road fund revenue growing an average of 14% a year under this bill, fund expenditures grew by an average of just 5%. Oh, yes. I will mention Ozark before we're done here, too. I think that's right, Vaughn. In other words, since passing Rebuild Illinois, the state's collecting more money for roads, but it isn't spending more money on roads. And of course, the Department of Transportation, I really apologize. The lockbox provision that the Illinois Constitution prevents road fund money, I have no idea. But I'm just going to turn away and cough for a minute. Hopefully I'll be all right now. We'll see. At the end of fiscal 2025, it held $3.7 billion. One pitfall of this massive lump of cash is that they can't spend it only on road fund. They can only spend it on the road fund. And yet, last year, now think about this, folks, we have many, many, many roads, over 600 bridges in downstate Illinois that are in drastic need of repair. Roads need repaving, bridges need rebuilt. Last year, lawmakers used more than $1 billion from the road fund to bail out the RTA in Chicago, the Regional Transportation Authority. This is why 33 counties and 7 more have it on the ballot this year to remove themselves from Cook County. Though not technically violating the lockbox provision that said they could only use this money for road repairs and bridge work, the move made unions mad and arguably violated the spirit of Rebuild Illinois to fix roads and bridges. So, to win support from those unions, the law includes the potential for the largest passenger toll hike in Illinois history. There you have it. 7 more counties are going to vote, not a non-binding vote, of course, just a kind of a, is it going to happen? Are we going to do it? You know, could it be done? The non-binding advisory questions would join similar measures already approved in 33 Illinois counties, where supporters argue that the political priorities of rural and suburban communities are routinely overshadowed by the state's largest population center. And these non-binding advisory questions would join, again, the 7 counties would join the 33 that have already done this. Illinois is not the only state with thoughts of separation from population centers. Oregon and Idaho are experiencing urban versus rural irritations, as Eastern Oregonians in rural areas are advocating joining Idaho because Portland, you know, the big metropolitan area of Oregon, seems to control everything. But if Southern Illinois, meaning I-80 South, was successful in separating from Cook and the collar counties, that may have possibilities. But if it was just Cook County, which, by the way, has the largest deer population of any county in the state, how long before Southern Illinois Pauls would be griping about the representation and the dollar hogging of huge population counties around Cook? The old saying is, be careful what you ask for, and that is very true. We are part of Illinois, just like Cook County is, and that's what we got. Getting close, and I'm getting down close to the end here. When you drive out around Hillsborough Lake, or Beaver Lake, or Lake Lou Yeager, and you cross the dam, and you look at the dam and you think, yeah, it's pretty substantial. It holds the water back. It does what it's supposed to do. You know, they dammed a big part of the Kaskaskia River to make the largest inland lake in Illinois, Lake Carlisle. They are dwarfed by Hoover Dam. I don't know if you ever heard the story about Hoover Dam. But Hoover Dam, of course, you can drive your car across it. There's 2-lane road over it. And you can stop and look at it and look down. You see movies where, you know, Hoover Dam is a real part of the movie. But the base of Hoover Dam, just the bottom, the base, is 660 feet thick, nearly as thick as the dam is tall. It's wildly over-engineered, but it wasn't a luxury. It was a strict necessity born of sheer terror. When the Bureau of Reclamation began finalizing the Boulder Canyon project, the American public was reeling from one of the worst civil engineering disasters in history. I had never heard of this. I don't know if you had, but this occurred. This is history. In 1928, the St. Francis Dam in California, designed by the renowned William Mulholland, I guess Mulholland Drive might have been named after this guy, catastrophically collapsed just hours after being inspected. A towering wall of water wiped out entire towns and killed over 400 people. The political and social pressure on the Hoover Dam designers was overwhelming. They were venturing into completely uncharted territory, planning to build a structure that would hold back Lake Mead. Of course, now it's nearly dry, but not then, of course, the largest artificial reservoir in the world at that time. If the Hoover Dam failed, the resulting flood would eradicate communities, wipe out agricultural lands and infrastructure all the way down the Colorado River to the Gulf of California. There was absolutely no room for an experimental or optimized to the edge design. To guarantee it would hold, engineers chose a gravity arch design. The dam curves upstream towards the reservoir, so the horizontal pressure of the water pushes the structure tighter into the solid basalt walls of Black Canyon. And simultaneously, the weight of the concrete, and I'm getting to the gist of this story here. Hi, Lance, nice to see you. The weight of the concrete, millions of tons of it, uses gravity to hold the base firmly against the canyon floor. Building something this thick created an unprecedented logistical hurdle. The chemical reaction that cures concrete generates heat. And the engineers calculated that if they poured the Hoover Dam in a single continuous block, it would take 125 years to cool down. The resulting thermal expansion and contraction would have shattered the dam from the inside out before it was even finished. To avoid this, the dam was never a single pour. Instead, it was constructed as a series of interlocking blocks, and as each block was poured, workers ran miles of customized steel pipes through the wet concrete, pumping ice-cold river water from a refrigeration plant through the matrix to rapidly wick away the heat. And once a block had cooled and contracted, the pipes were filled with grout, and the next block was poured. The resulting structure, and this is Hoover Dam now, and this was built, back in the 30s. The resulting structure contains 3.25 million cubic yards of concrete in the dam alone, enough to pave a 2-lane highway from San Francisco to New York. And rather than being over-engineered, the Hoover Dam was built exactly as strong as it needed to be to convince a terrified public that the Colorado River could be permanently tamed. I have so much more, but we've hit 11 o'clock. And I've probably wore you out with some of those facts, but some interesting things, I think, that you needed to know. I hope you enjoyed this. Tell your friends, and of course it'll be on demand tomorrow, and you can tell them about it, and hopefully we'll keep our numbers up high. This is, 33 of these, I think, and hopefully everybody's still enjoying them, because I'm still enjoying doing them. All right? Thank you very much. Have a great night, everybody. It's going to be a hot one again tomorrow. Any way you look at it, it's going to be about 86 degrees. And with the exception of maybe a 30% chance of rain on Friday, we've got about 9 days of dry sun, upper 80s, lower 90s. So the heat dome is still upon us. Be safe. Take care of yourself, okay? And thanks for watching, and good night, everybody.